Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
These guys are hammers, and to hammers everything looks like nails.
I heard that.
You were meant to. So you see something that's important, you call it out, and we'll make it happen.
Okay. Mother Nature is a serial killer. No one's better, more creative. Like all serial killers, she can't help the urge to want to get caught. What good are all those brilliant crimes if no one takes the credit? So she leaves crumbs. Now the hard part is seeing the crumbs for the clues they are. Sometimes the thing you thought was the most brutal aspect turns out to be the chink in its armor, and she loves disguising her weaknesses as strengths.
If you can fight, fight.
Head north if you can. Hello? Is there anyone out there hearing this?
Help each other.
Mexico City has been declared complete loss.
Be prepared for anything. Our war has just begun.
We are the hammers, and we are the nails. The world stands upon the precipice of total insanity, and we need you, and we hope you need us, bringing information, news, and as much truth as we can eke out before Mother Nature turns us to crumbs. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, working to become millions of voices singing in unison to bring the sanity back home.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio, listener-supported radio, where no topic is taboo. And we're brought to you by Revolution Radio, listener-supported radio, where information never sleeps. We're here today. We're going to be talking to, in the first half, Sondra Sneed, and we're going to discuss her book, What to Do When You're Dead, which it's not a real long read, but it's a very well-written and informative read, I'd say. I guess you might want to call it. It's got a lot of information in it for it to be so small. We can talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Before we get started, let me remind everybody once again that it's your donations that keep us sponsor-free, Revolution Radio as well as Talk Now Radio, so that, you know, there's no control. We can bring you the kind of information that other, you know, mainstream media can't bring you because they're afraid of losing money from a sponsor. So don't forget, we can't do anything without our listeners' help. So, Sandra, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Royce. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you back again. I enjoyed the first conversation we had, and, of course, I didn't have the book at the time, and you since then brought me one over here in person. That's so sweet of you. And it's a very interesting book, actually, very unique. I've never seen anybody have a one-on-one conversation with God, kind of like you'd be sitting in the living room and just having a discussion about the deeper issues of life, in other words.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? I mean, the fact that it's, first of all, that it's possible that you can do it, but, you know, ever since I, you know, discovered this ability, I have discovered other God scribes through history, and I can tell that they are a God scribe just in the language that is used, and some of them specifically say that the source of that conversation, the other side of that conversation, is the creator of the universe. People like Neil Donald Walsh and Moses. But then there are other people in history who quietly or behind the scenes have said that this work that they're creating, scripted work they're creating, comes from the great source. You know, people like Harriet Tubman, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, said that book was given to her by God, and if you read it, you can definitely hear that source within it. So yeah, it's exciting to sit and be able to ask any question of the entire universe, of this great being that is the origin of it all.
Okay. Now, I was going to mention that you're just a little bit hard to hear. Is your mouth kind of away from the microphone?
No, I fear that. Is this any better at all?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Following the microphone now. Okay.
Sorry about that. Maybe just such a soft-spoken person.
No, not normally. I don't think technology has fully caught up with this great opportunity to do these. You know, I have yet to find a headset that is loud enough on my phone, you know. So if you find one, let me know.
The headset probably works better plugged into the computer, but then it does plugged into the phone, I guess.
Right. Right. I have one, but then you can't walk around, you know, and I tend to walk around and gesture and things, so.
You really get into it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see, where was I at now? I just lost my place telling you that.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, though, you know, it seemed to, oh, yeah, I know what I was going to ask you. It just now came back to me. The term God scribe was really kind of new to me. I never heard it till I went to your website and read it. Is that another term, your personal preferred term for, say, like a prophet?
Yes. I mean, a prophet is kind of a term that it has lost its meaning in our culture and time. There's so much baggage associated with prophecy and a prophet because of the interpretations of the Bible. So I wouldn't say that by any means that I am a prophet. Only time and history can tell that based on what gets left of my work after I've passed. That's what history decides, whether I was a prophet or not. But I call myself a God scribe, which is a term that I wouldn't say I coined, but it came out of a conversation within this chapter, the first chapter of the book, What to Do When You're Dead. A former atheist interviews the source of infinite being is the subtitle. And in that first chapter, when God's actually revealing my purpose, God called me a messenger, and it sounded very messianic to me, which scared me. And I said, well, I would rather just be called a scribe. And so that's when I used the word God scribe to define what I do. But it actually has gone beyond that. Over the last couple of years, I've trained myself to do verbal and, oral transliteration. In fact, recently, I've been doing events in California and Sedona, speaking events, and I've just let go and let God talk for an hour and a half, and the content is so amazing, and God's very interactive with the audience, and it's a profound experience to be a witness to. But even in the videos, the information is so true. You just feel the trueness of it, and it's so enlightening, and that it lightens the burdens of the world just by knowing certain information. You feel less judged. Like one of the events, God presents the argument that there is no such thing as imperfection. It is logically impossible for the word imperfection to have any meaning at all, because it assumes that there is some thing that is perfect and you're not that, so you're imperfect. And God sets up the argument, there's no such thing as imperfection. What the issue is that people project onto you their expectations, and if you're not living up to their expectations, then they call you imperfect. But this is impossible. But you can't live your life based on other people's expectations. You become a prisoner to other people's expectations. So your perfection is you living life the way you were born to live it, and you have to undo a lot of the programming that the world has done to you in order to find that true nature within you, and then, walk that course. So it's been a beautiful experience in this year that I've published What to Do When You're Dead. It's great information I get to bring.
Yeah, I can tell. By reading it.
Good.
Wanted to mention to everybody in here that you are listening to Studio A. The phone number is 347-688-2902. If you have any questions for the me or the guest, either one actually, or any questions at all, or maybe you just want to comment or, throw an idea out there. So that's what the number's there for.
Or even get a reading, because I've been doing soul readings for people, and how those work is, God is contained within all of us. We are contained within God, and God within us. So the God being that is you, for instance, Royce, would be speaking through the God being within me. So whatever information would come through in a soul reading would be accessible to you later on. If you learn to quiet the mind and go deep within, you can hear the same voice that I would be verbally transliterating in a soul reading.
So this could kind of like work as a past life regression, maybe?
It can. God usually only talks about past lives when they are related to the current life, because God's all about keeping the past in the past, all about the nature of the now. But sometimes when the past is actually attached to you in such a way that it affects things you do on an unconscious level, then that becomes an important thing for God to talk about, what a past life experience did to you and what you're holding on to. And I can demonstrate that for you, Royce, if you want to be the
guinea pig.
The demonstratee.
Is that guinea pig or victim? I'm not just kidding.
Oh, I've used both terms. I've used victim before, definitely.
Well, I don't know. I just like to have a little fun, but I think you gathered that from the first time you was on my show.
Sure, of course.
But yes,
would you be interested?
Why not?
Yeah. All right. Okay, so God says, and let me just say, whenever I say God says, what that does is put my brain on the right track to then focus on that vibration. Okay, so God says, Royce, you do have a past life experience that has affected this life, and we would like to discuss that, but it requires you giving us permission to speak about you in a way that might be a bit uncomfortable. Is that okay?
Okay, why not?
Okay, good. So when you were in this previous life, you were a prisoner of the trial that held people in the knowing of their sword. So here's the thing. When you were a prisoner, you took hold of your condition as being an opportunity. So don't think that you were a prisoner and then this is a destructive way of thinking about that past. This is a position that you held within your mind that literally changed the course of your life when you were freed. So let's now go into the condition that changed for you. When you were held between the clever nature and the surrender nature, you had to design within you a way of escape. You needed to escape where you were, and you needed to use this nature of you that pretended as if you were willing to be the prisoner. And then the opposite side of you had to prepare, plan, study, and be extremely connected to that freedom so that you could be both those things at once, be both the prisoner, the good prisoner, and the one who is seeking freedom. So that dichotomy within you became a very powerful, powerful force. You saw how your personality could literally split. And when it split, it gave you two people to be. And when you became two people to be, you wondered which one of those two was going to win out when you freed yourself into the world outside of that prison. Ultimately, you died in prison. So your body passed, but that mind, the split, is what freed you into the nature of spirit rather than trapped you within the cell, which happens very often to prisoners. They become trapped within the cell of their own mind. But you were able to free yourself because you connected with the clever being who was moving into the realm of freedom. So the reason that this is affecting your life now is that you are sometimes holding on to that prisoner when you really need to move into the clever being. And this clever being is who you're being now as a radio host. The prisoner is the one who thinks that there is no way out. No way out. Anytime you feel no way out, that is connected to the being you were as a prisoner. It has nothing to do with what's going on in your life right now. So the feeling within you has to change from no way out to there's a way out, I got to figure it out. Do you see that?
Well, I understand where you're coming from with that. I know there's been often times that when I had a problem, I had the attitude of I was going to find a way, and if I couldn't find a way, I would make a way.
Exactly.
But that sounds like a clever guy talking there, doesn't it?
Yes, but that clever guy sometimes gets overshadowed by the prisoner when the no way out voice is connecting to your situation. So anytime you hear no way out, it's an old voice, and you can tell it to go away very, very quickly if you allow it. Sometimes it hangs on longer than it needs to.
So I'm basically still two split characters into one body.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Does that mean he can let go of one of them? No, because that split was too introductory, meaning it not only held on to you through the final stages of your previous life, but it moved all the way into the nature of spirit, and it expanded your soul as a result of that split. So you're going to be holding on to that split for at least another lifetime, because you have to find a way to merge those two beings. But it has to be a merging that is so conscious and intense that it dissolves the split that was created from the previous lifetime. Do you feel that when sometimes do you feel like two people?
I haven't really noticed it or talked about it much, but that's not the, say with so much going on over 54 years, you haven't actually done it, though.
Right. There's sometimes when you think that the timing of what you are working on seems wrong. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Timing issues? Okay, so that's a related way. That is a related way of being the split, because the clever you is working on a different timeline than the prisoner you. The prisoner you is a wait. Not the right time. Where the clever you makes any time the right time.
Ah, okay, I see.
Okay.
Now, and you can do this for anybody that calls in, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're waiting for somebody to decide to call in. Let's go back to your book for a minute.
Sure.
One thing I couldn't help but notice while I was reading it was that the recurring theme, especially in the beginning of the book, was that you can't do no good for anybody in the outer world until you've corrected what's wrong with you on the inner world.
That's a very interesting perspective of the book, because it's a very self-reflecting way of thinking of this information. What you're saying is that the healing you do for yourself becomes your reflection of the world, and then your reflection of the world becomes a way of helping people, because you're able to give them a healing perspective from you. And as true as that is, there's still plenty of work you can do before you're fully whole. So it doesn't mean that you cannot help others. And the others that God talks about mostly, or I should say the theme of what to do when you're dead, there being just millions of people trapped on the earth who have no bodies. And they're trapped by their past because they think that all they are is a body. So the only way for them to move into the next realm is to be helped by physical beings, because they are unable to recognize non-physical beings who are there trying to help them as well. But then there's a lot of other information in that book, in addition to that.
Right. And I was reading about these people you're talking about trapped because they identified with their body. But what I didn't see, and of course I probably hadn't got to it yet, was how did help actually arrive to them, or did your book even cover that?
How to say that again?
What kind of help? I mean, can these people that are trapped in the earth realm without a body, can they be helped at all?
Yes, Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just a very simple, I'm just going to let God speak to this right now so that we can have it recorded on your show. So God says, the nature of helping a soul move into their awareness of themselves as a spirit and not as a body is to recognize the kindness within you. And when you recognize the kindness within you, that becomes the kinship with God, that is the kinship with God within them. Because it's the association with the greater way of themselves that elevates their vibrational connection to the way of spirit. And then there are souls that work to bring these trapped souls into the way of God because they are the stand-in soul. You don't hear, this is Sondra talking, you don't hear much about the stand-in soul, but I've actually met one who was a stand-in soul, and millions of souls had passed through her when she was that soul. So they bridge the chasm between, or let's say the symbol would be, they bridge the chasm between heaven and hell in order to help those souls who are coming into awareness that they really are more than what they think.
Okay. Well, I know it's been a pretty common thing ever since I can remember for people to identify more with their bodies than with their actual spiritual selves. Almost to the point, even the people in church do not seem to be aware of the fact that they're part spirit or soul and that they're inside of a body. They seem to have already integrated this. Any idea where this is coming from?
Yes, it's because the body has a mind of its own. The body is an intricate machine that is self-aware, so it is aware of its own space, the space it occupies. It's as if you were to build a robot and gave it all the tools to think. And so it thinks that it is. It thinks it exists. It's not until it recognizes that it's more than just this thought that it will let go of the idea that this body is all it is. So it's a mechanism God put into the body as a machine that is both the problem and the solution, depending on which perspective the mind of that being takes.
Would that mean then that when you say you see a ghost, you're seeing the spirit of the body of that deceased person and not the actual deceased person themselves?
You are seeing an apparition of the body, but that apparition is projected by the individuated form. So all beings are individuated netherworld beings. It's hard to come up with a good word for that, but netherworld is the nature of the imagination. So if you imagine that God is the great imaginer, then all that exists within that great imaginer is an aspect of the imagination. And then the individuated form imagines itself as an individual. That is the I am. So every individuated form of this imagination can project what it thinks it is. And so the apparition is a projection of what the soul thinks that it is. And it will remain so until it starts to question that existence. And then it is subject to all kinds of influence that may not be beneficial to the ultimate freedom of the soul. The soul can be trapped by other souls because it takes the energy of others in order for the soul to survive within that realm of existence.
Okay. Also, I would like to take a minute out to remind everybody, because I think I forgot to do it. I had so much on my mind and got to talking to her about her book that I forgot to mention her website. If you want to learn more about her and about her book, go to www.sondrasneed.com. That's SONDRASNEED.com. And she's also got some other books there that she has written that y'all might want to check out. And would you like to tell them a little something about the other? It's what, one book or two books you got on there still?
There is I wouldn't call it a book, I'd call it maybe a booklet. It's only about 7 typed pages, but it's really dense language. And it's called Relief to See Her Arrive, The Lost Symbol of the Adam and the Eve. And this was a story that God gave me during my year of solitude in 2004. And it was almost 2 hours of nonstop writing. And this is the story of Adam and Eve that had originally been given to the God scribe tens of thousands of years ago, and it was passed down through oral tradition. When it was finally written down, however, it completely got edited because it's a story of free will, and 2/3 of the population at that time were slaves, so you can't tell slaves that they're free. So they changed it into a story about this is what happens when you disobey the master. Then they completely edited out the story of Eve entirely because the women of that day were so beaten down. They didn't reflect the original story of Eve, which is this amazingly purposeful feminine aspect of the nature of God. So just to give a clue, the Hebrew word Eve means life or living, and the Hebrew word Adam, Adama, means red man or clay. Earth means earth. So together, Adam and Eve represent the living earth, and the symbol that has been lost in all of that because of some story of evil really gets replaced with just an amazingly creative nature or way of thinking about the origin of humankind being the combination of spirit and human. So that story is available on my content tab on my website.
Okay, and I don't know why, but I was thinking there was another one. Is that maybe somebody else I'm thinking of?
Well, there is a free download that if you sign up for my Weisenheimer Post, which is a very irregular mailing that I send out, very irregular, but always substantive. If you sign up for that, you get a free copy of the 5 principles for quieting your mind and listening to your higher self. So maybe that's what you're thinking of. And I have lots of videos too. I'm trying to get more of them up. I've got a lot of content that I just haven't gotten up or published yet.
Okay. Now, don't you also have a Hangout on Google?
I do. I have, and you can access that from my website as well. We haven't done the group Hangouts yet, but definitely on the to-do list. I've been very busy with events lately.
So you're planning to start doing like group soul readings or something like that on the Hangout maybe or something?
That would be a great idea. And
I was just taking a guess.
Definitely. I will put that on the to-do list because that'll be a way of reaching people who have a hard time coming to my events.
Okay. Now, you say events. You host events here in the Houston area that people that have transportation can attend?
That is in the works. I am meeting with Marva Mason, who Houstonians might be aware of who that is. She's hosted a monthly psychic fair for 20 years in Houston, Marva Mason's Psychic Fairs, and she's going to help me work on promoting an event for Houston. And then I'm also in contact with someone who's going to help me with Austin. So far it's been places in California and Sedona, Arizona, that I've been doing most of my speaking events and public readings, that sort of thing, because those are areas that are very open to the New Age movement. So it's much easier to create those events than here in Houston, but they will happen.
You're reminding me. I forget what it's called, and I live right here, just blocks away from where it happens at every year. But up and down Heights Boulevard, over here close to my house, they have these like festivals. You know how? Have you ever been down Heights Boulevard?
Yeah.
It's got those big mediums on in the middle of the road. You got ongoing traffic on either side of the medium going different directions. Mm-hmm. And once a year, they set up all these booths and have these like a festival of some kind there. I don't remember when the last time was they did it, but it sounds like it'd be a perfect place for you to set up a booth one year.
I am going to look that up, Heights Festival. I just realized I am going to be doing an event here in Houston at the end of August that I would like to mention. The Theosophy Society has asked me to speak, and I will be speaking about the nature of consciousness, and really it'll be God talking. And that is going to be held at the Theosophy Society in West Houston. Theosophy is Theosophy Society. If you want to look that up, I'll be listed as their next speaker for the end of August. Are you familiar with the Theosophy Society?
Yeah, that was originally founded by Alice Bailey.
Was it Alice Bailey? No, I think it's Madame Blavatsky.
You're right. I don't know why I was thinking Alice. Well, they were both New Age, but it went further back to Blavatsky, and I just transposed the two of them.
Right, which isn't hard to do. I'm sure. It was founded by Madame Blavatsky in the late 1800s. I'm not sure. I think 1875, maybe.
That sounds just about right. I don't think you're far off.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that opportunity to speak at the Theosophy Society.
I was going to say. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, please.
No, I was just going to say, do you think you have time to tell us? Because I don't know how long it takes to tell us about the nature of consciousness, but I know we still got about roughly almost 20 minutes left on the show. You think you got time to tell us about it?
Sure. God's really good at keeping time, so I'm just going to let go and let God describe the nature of consciousness that might be relevant to your show. So God says, in the nature of consciousness that has the most inspiring condition is a mechanism that allows for self-awareness all the way back to the origin of human nature. So when consciousness is accessed all the way back to the origin of human nature, what it says is that the human world was made by the understanding that all manipulation is originating in the imagination. So when consciousness says, I am creating, it says, my hands are moving, my legs are walking, I am gesturing, I am smelling, tasting, touching, experiencing the nature of creating from a kinesthetic opportunity. So I can feel what it is I'm conscious of when I know myself as being immersed within the consciousness that is my own imagination. The imagination is the origin of all things that have ever existed in the history of humankind, because humankind is the way of bringing imagination into three dimensions. So if you can imagine imagination as being multidimensional, it can experience itself in every dimension imaginable. Then you can imagine that what is within that imaginable dimension is replicated in the third dimension when the brain of the human being has identified those two things simultaneously. So they've identified the three-dimensional plane as well as the dimensional plane that offers them an understanding of some technology, some way of building architecture that is good for environmental uses. Whatever the condition for this insight is, the three-dimensional replication of it is a mechanistic transition. So the mechanistic transition is so much like a three-dimensional printer, it's not even funny. Because humans are a three-dimensional recreation of the multidimensional imagination that all things originate from. So the consciousness that's necessary in order to utilize that particular mechanism of the human form is understanding there are no limits at all. No limits at all. And the only way to eliminate limitation is to see what that is by the nature of what that is not. So it is not a way of considering the self. The limitation is not a way of considering the self. That's identifiable in the first degree. The second degree is identifiable when it says, I am not the nature of this world, but this body allows me to take what is in the world of my imagination and turn it into something I can sense. I can sense in all my senses that it truly exists. So the second foundation for consciousness to be utilized by the human form is to understand that the physical manner is related only to imagination, not to what already exists, right? Because if you try to create something based on what already exists, you would replicate the form of what's existing, but you're not in the imaginative realm to make it. So
imitating, not duplicating.
Exactly. So the third manner of understanding from a foundational way, the condition for consciousness to work for human beings, is to identify that the imagination is a source of information. It's not just the place from which all things are made. It is also the source for all information in order to make that which is unimaginable. Because if one's imagination is solely grounded in what one can experience through one's senses, then the limits of those senses are what are replicated in what is created from those senses. So when the origin of all things is pulled into the cognizant brain, then every question necessary to create something completely out of the ordinary is accessible. All answers become accessible. The only thing that limits that is the question. How good can you ask a question? So if you ask the question, how do I make a box? Then the answer to your question is the creation of a box. But if you ask the question, how do I make a box disappear? Then you have to pull from your mind all of the aspects of disappearance that is possible. And you have to assume you know nothing about the nature of disappearing boxes. And when you get answers that are based on things you never even considered, then you increase your condition for questions. So the questions become not just how do I make this box disappear, but is there really a box here at all? So this is a bit esoteric, but it gives an example of how the imagination creates something completely unimaginable. It asks questions that go beyond the way of the senses, because the way of the senses is to pull from the environment everything it can experience, or they can experience, and then replicate those in the imagination. So you take a box and you feel it, you feel what it's made of, you feel the boundaries of that box, you feel the condition for that box in the room, which is how large is it, how small is it, and that is based on the space between the room and the box to determine a relative size. But when you let go of your senses, lose your mind for a moment, and you allow that box to have whatever it wants, whatever the box wants, rather than what you are holding in your mind to create that box. You ask the box, what would you rather be? And the box says, I would rather be a triangle. So we have now shown how to make a box disappear in a way that was unimaginable from the first question when it was asked. You see?
Okay.
So consciousness is all about perfecting the nature of a question. The better the question, the better the imagination, the better the imagination, the better the creation of what is possible. So that's how we would end that discussion about consciousness.
And we still got time to go into Truthbringer's question.
Terrific.
It says in the chat room here, Studio A, can you go into the connection with Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley?
I cannot. I'm relatively unfamiliar with the course of it. I've read only a little bit of it, but I could very easily ask God about that condition. So God says, this is a connection between two people who found the irascible nature of spirits. So spirits were working through Madame Blavatsky and giving her perfect pitch. So what we consider perfect pitch to be is when the vibration from spirit comes through the instrument, the body, and the individual is able to replicate that through language in perfect pitch, just as a musician who might hear in their eardrum a vibrational sound, that is the chord from an instrument, and then replicate that in perfect pitch. So Madame Blavatsky was one of those who could replicate the nature of spirit in perfect pitch and language. And then Aleister Crowley was the mastermind of marketing her work. So it's the combination of the two that created a historical figure. This historical figure is the one that is left over to train the minds of the future that this is possible. Every great historical figure becomes an historical figure when they are discovered by someone in their time who sees the relevance of the timelessness of that, and that's what Aleister Crowley was.
Evidently, that's what Madame Blavatsky was, too.
Well, she was the subject, and he was the subjugator.
Okay. Well, I don't want to run out of time without giving you a chance to bring up anything that I didn't think to cover that you might want to have, tell the listeners about.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. And I just want to reiterate that if you would like to receive the 5 principles for quieting your mind and listening to your higher self, that's available if you sign up for my Weisenheimer post, which, by the way, is just excerpts of my book, What to Do When You're Dead, and difficult passages. God then elaborates on these difficult passages, and then in the sidebar, I give people updates of events and where I'll be. So, so I'd love to hear from your listeners to see how they like this show. Just go to sondrasneed.com, sondrasneed.com, and there's also a way to contact me to get a soul reading as well.
Now, do you have a Facebook page?
I do, and it's facebook.com/GodScribe.
So y'all can visit her there, and y'all can like her page, and you'll be kept updated through your page's feed on what she has going on. And she also has a Google Plus account, but Google don't have those easy short URLs, do they?
No, but if you look up Sondra Sneed, you'll see it. It'll show up.
Okay. And let's see, are there any other forms of contact or anything else that you might want to let them know about?
Everything is accessible through my website. There's amazing videos as well. There is a workshop that I did in Austin called the 7 self-checks that you can do to see what's holding you back. And then there's some really great information on my speaker page. There's two speaking events, so there's over 180 minutes of amazing information that comes from the source of infinite being, and you can see me delivering that on video. So that information is so good. You don't even have to watch the video. You just let it run and listen to it while you're doing your chores around the house.
Oh, that's handy.
It's valuable. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And folks, once again, her website is www.sondrasneed.com. That's SONDRASNEED.com. With that, they're going to interrupt us with the music. It says the show's over just any minute now. But you guys hang loose till after break time. When I come back, I'll be interviewing Janice Carlson about her book, Soul Sensing. And she's got a lot to share with us, just like Sondra's had to share with us. And I'm pretty sure you guys would, be pretty interested in it. And also, don't forget that Revolution Radio as well as Talk Now Radio are both listener supported. We each have donation links on on each of our respective sites. So you just go to the menu and click on that, and even small donations can help. Also, if you click on banners, that helps. Especially on my site, I always have a book cover of the book that the guest is selling, and I get an affiliate kickback on that one if y'all click on that instead of going directly to Amazon, in other words. Sandra, do you got any last-minute thoughts?
Well, I think we'll ask God that, and God says the last thought that we will leave for today is the nature of the being that is you is the one that is perfect in the eyes of God. Never allow anyone to tell you otherwise, because you were made by the being that knows what perfection is. So there is nothing about you that is imperfect. It is impossible. Amen.
So anytime you're being anything other than yourself and what you want to be, you're really being a slave to whoever enticed you to be that way.
Ooh, well said.
The way the Apostle Paul put it was, don't you know you're a slave to who you lend your members to? That could be to Dr. Pepper, that could be to beer, that could be to a person or an ideal or anything you lend yourself to.
That's right. That's right. Brilliant, Royce. Well, it's been a wonderful opportunity being on your show again. I look forward to the next time.
Okay, that sounds great. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. And what I might do is send out notices to people to see if they'd be interested in doing the readings from you, if I can get them all consolidated at one time, and I'll get back with you if I can get that set up for you.
Okay, great. We could do awesome readings on the next show. Thank you so much, Royce.
Thank you.
Have an awesome week.
You too now.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, folks, that ends up this hour. And while we're waiting for that music to start to tell me that the break time music. Oh, there it goes. I was going to say we're going to have Chris Everard next Saturday talking about the Truth Movement and John Lennon. But that can wait till later.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, I'm Benjamin.
And I'm Jasmine.
We are inner tour guides with black belts in the art of self-awareness and how to live a passionate life.
We love talking with you about what you have and what you want.
More importantly, we want to explore with you how to bridge the gap between that wanting and bring it right back to the having.
So what are your hopes, dreams, and desires?
Is it money, love, success, health, wealth, or something even more specific?
Let us guide you through the exciting adventure of turning what you want into what you have.
Come join in the conversation on our show, The Inner Revolution.
We look forward to exploring with you.
The finder of lost children and missing persons. Monique Lassan. Surveilling civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Wednesday evening on Revolution Radio, come join our very own investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her private X-Files.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Private X-Files, every Wednesday from 10 to midnight Eastern, Studio B, on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. But is your destiny to find the golden child?
Oscar's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex, looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for